Severance is one of the most unique and original shows that I've seen in recent time, and not only that, but it's one of the best. It combines this super original, awesome idea with this really unique aesthetic as well. I'm just absolutely loving it. I've been hooked since the first season. I'm caught up with the second season. If you haven't seen the show, I highly recommend it. And since we're doing a tier list of the characters, it is a minor spoiler warning. I'm not going to be going through big spoilers, so don't worry if you started watching it. I'm not going to spoil anything or any of the crazy twists that happen. I'm just going to be alluding to a few things, but nothing major. So the idea of the show is basically people who go into this program actually have their home life and their work life completely severed from each other. That's why it's called Severance. You're basically splitting your home life and your work life completely. So your work version of yourself has no idea about your outie. They call it the innie and the outie, and basically the work version of yourself has no recollection, no memory of yourself in the real world or the outside world. And then the vice versa. So your outside person has no idea what's going on in the work life mode. So it's a super unique premise. I really haven't seen anything like it before. The things that they do and the places that they go with the show are unpredictable and just amazing. I can go on and on raving about it, but let's get to the tier list. So I'm going to be going through all the characters and ranking them from worst to best. So if I put them in the S tier, that means they're superior, best of the best character. And if I put them down in F, it means they're terrible. So right here, we have this column of question marks. So I do know who some of these people are, but I thought they weren't significant enough to actually, but I can give you my rankings in the comments if you want to know some of these. So these people were at a party in the first season. This person is a protester on the street, and this person's the receptionist of Lumen, and they actually even have the board as well, which is not even a character. And so, and then they have these people which were some replacements later on. So again, just I didn't think they were significant enough to rank. So again, let me know below. But anyways, without further ado, let's get started. Oh, and by the way, I will be ranking these people in terms of likability, acting, and the characters themselves. So I'm going to be using those three factors. Alright, so starting off right off the bat, we have Alexa, played by Nikki M. James. So her role in the show is basically the love interest of Mark. So Mark, is going through his own thing in the real world, his outie basically, and he's just trying to find someone else out there, and he comes across Alexa. They kind of go on this sort of blind date, if you will, or they're set up by his sister, I believe, and they have a good time and stuff, and she kind of shows up throughout the show. But I think she has great chemistry with Adam Scott in the show. I think that it's believable the way they talk to each other, and she's pretty open and honest with him and stuff, and I think that she's a pretty likable character. Again, she doesn't really show up that much, but I personally thought that she was pretty good, so she held it down sort of as a love interest friend type person in the outside world. So I'm going to be putting her up at a solid B, just B straight. Next we have Burt, played by the great Christopher Walken. As you see, some of these actually have an innie and an outie version of themselves. For most of these, I'm going to be putting these both in the same rank. I'm going to be kind of ranking them as one. So again, there's a few that I won't do that, but for someone like Burt, where you barely see his outie self and you don't really know too much about his outie self at this time, I'm going to just be doing them as one. So Burt works in the optics and design department in Lumen, and basically they basically do drawings and stuff like that and paintings along with other stuff. And this character is actually very subtle. There's something about him that he's definitely older. He's an older person in the office, and just seeing his relationship sort of build with Irving along with the other people in the company and how long that he's been there. He's just a very likable character. At least his innie is. That's what we mostly know him for. That's the most screen time that we see of him. And he's really likable. I think Christopher Walken is, and always has been, a great actor. So he completely holds it down. And it's just very subtle acting. And there's just sort of sadness as well in the way that he portrays this character. But I really like him. Again, really likable. And I'm really curious to see more about his outie self, because they don't really show too much of that, but they're alluding to the fact that they're probably going to show more of him in this second season, which is happening right now. So I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with him, but in terms of that, I think he's a very solid character. I really like him, so I'm going to be putting Burt up at the A tier along with his outie. Next we have Devon, played by Ntalie. She is the sister of Mark. Obviously, she's an outie. She has nothing to do with the innie work self that Mark has, but they do an excellent job. Again, she also has great chemistry with Adam Scott in the show. It really does feel like they're brother and sister. They have that sibling bond, that sort of sibling relationship where it's very sort of making fun of each other, sort of like being a-holes to each other, but also very loving at the end of the day. And she truly cares for Mark and wants the best for him, and vice versa. And I just really like that relationship. She also added a sort of maturity level as well of common sense throughout some of the show, which I liked, in its subtle conversation. But she truly does care for our main character, which is Mark. But yeah, that's one of the main reasons that she is a very good character. I really like her. Again, very subtle acting, but very believable. So I really like Devon. I'm going to be putting her up at the A tier. Next up, we have Sig Graner, played by Michael Kumsky. So Graner is the security of Lumen. He has a very short, small role in the show. You don't really see too much of him, but he does play that very stern, straight-laced security guard. And you do see him slightly in the outside world, but barely. You really do mostly see him in the innie world, and honestly, if you see him, you know you've messed up, you've effed up, and you're going to be in trouble, because he is security. And he's one of those people that was just popping up when you would least expect him. Like, you screwed up, he all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, and that's it. You're being taken to the front office or whatnot. So, yeah, he had that presence. This role really had a lot to do with the look of it, the presence of security, the presence of always being watched. And he does a great job at that. I think this character definitely had the look of him, along with the seniority, because he's a little bit older. So you definitely kind of have that older guard look to him, which fit very well for the role. So because of that, I think that Sig Graner gets a very solid B tier. I don't think I could justify any higher, because again, very small role, but Graner is a B character. Next up, we have Dylan, his innie and his outie. Again, this is another one that I'm going to be pairing up together. So Dylan, to me, is of the 4 core members, which we haven't gotten to all of them. This is the first core member we're talking about, which is the M&R, which is the MDR group, which is made up of our 4 main characters, which I'll get to. But Dylan is basically the comic relief character. I actually really like this character a lot. I think that he's not only funny, but also serious when he needs to be. He's very smart, and just the dynamic that these 4 have, which are Helly, Irving, Mark, and Dylan, they just have great chemistry with each other, and just completely different ages, completely different look to them. But Dylan, as the first one, really like him. I think he has a subtle way of acting in this. Great chemistry with the rest of the cast, with the rest of the group. He definitely can be one of the more snarky ones. He's definitely one of the ones that is more out there and more self-centered at times in terms of a social setting. He'll just tell you how it is. He'll tell you how it is, and he doesn't care if he comes across as an a-hole or not. But honestly, Dylan is a very good character. I really liked him. I'm going to be putting him up at the A tier. Next up, we have Devon's baby. So this, I think, is one of the most iconic characters in the entire show, but for the worst reason. Just horrible actor, didn't say anything, barely did anything. I really ruined the show for me. Obviously, I'm kidding. I just thought it'd be funny to put this person in, this baby, not even person yet, this baby in there. I'm gonna be putting at the question mark here, Devon's baby. Yeah, moving on, we have Felicia, played by Claudia Robinson. So she works alongside Burt in the optics and design department. And again, very, very, very small role. But from what they do show her, I think that she definitely brought this sort of older grandma sort of vibe, if that makes sense. Whenever you saw her, she seemed very serious, but when it came down to it, then you see her talk a little more. She's actually that friendly sort of worker that you work with that's a little older, but you get along with them, and they have this sort of modesty to them, this maybe elderly wisdom, if you will, from what it seems like. Again, very small role, but and I really like that the way she sort of interacts with Burt. I think it's really good. It's very convincing. But again, not much going on in terms of screen time or a character arc or anything like that. Nor do I think that we're gonna continue to see so much of her. Definitely a side character, but one that I admired, and yeah, she's not bad. I'm putting her up at a B-. Can't justify any more than that. Next we have Gabby, played by Nora Dale. So, without going to full spoiler territory here, she is somebody that Devon meets when she's pregnant. She meets her in this sort of cabin while she's waiting for her baby to be delivered, basically. She meets this woman that's the wife of a rich sort of guy, or it's assumed. And she sort of like interacts with her a little bit. Personally, I thought that this character, and again, not a lot of screen time, but I don't know, I thought this character was pretty bland. Not very likable in any way. I think the actress did a decent job, but not much going on for this character at all. I thought that she really comes across as sort of spoiled in a way, and somebody that comes across as fake. And it sort of revealed more as to why she comes across like that. But yeah, not really much going on for this character at all. So gonna be putting her down at the C tier. Potentially even a D tier if I was feeling really brutal today, but I'm not, so she's going in the C tier. Next we have the second core member of the MDR group, Helly. So Helly is one of the new people that comes aboard, and she is a great character. I think she brings a great level of flair and rebellion to the group. I think she's really one of the moving parts or moving puzzles of the entire group and everything that goes on. And her Audi it's quite crazy what they do with her Audi character. I don't want to go too much into detail, don't want to spoil that, but if you know, obviously you know what I'm talking about. But her, just going off her indie character, which is mainly what we know most about her, I think that, yeah, she's just great. It's great chemistry with the rest of the crew, a great rebellious spirit. Yeah, just great. I really, and I think that Britt Lauer does a phenomenal job at playing both her innie and her outie. I mean, this goes for a lot of the characters, but her and basically the main group, the way they're able to sort of subtly fluctuate between the innie and the outie versions of themselves and do it in a way where they seem like two separate people, because in a way they are, is super impressive, and she does a phenomenal job at that. Her Audi's so different than her innie as well. So yeah, I think Helly is an excellent character, and I'm really curious to see what else they're going to do with her, especially in the Audi version of herself. Both are going up in the S tier. In terms of the Audi, it is a little questionable. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to be looking like as the season progresses. But for now, for time's sake, and for justification's sake, we're going to be putting them both up at the S tier. Next, we have the third main person in the MDR group, and that is Irving. I love Irving. I think he's probably my favorite character in the main group. Phenomenal actor, John Turturro. You've seen him in a lot of stuff, and he completely holds it down. Excellent casting. If I didn't mention before, everyone is perfectly casted in the show, I think, especially the main four. He is definitely the straight-laced, I want to get my work done sort of person, until he becomes a little more rebellious as the season goes on, at least the first season into the second season. But in terms of most of the trajectory, he is very much that I'm here to do my work. He's the guy that if he sees something wrong, he'll report it, or if he sees something that could be done that wasn't done correctly, he'll say something about it, like we should have done it in this way, or like I don't think we're allowed to do that. Very straight-laced, but the way he just evolves as a character and the way his dynamic is as sort of this really smart but older type. He's the oldest in the group, but he brings this different energy and this different wavelength in terms of how he thinks and how he interacts. He just has a great screen presence. So really, really great job. In terms of his Audi, there's really not much we can say. There's still a lot of question marks. There's so many question marks in the show, funny enough, and one of them is the Audi of all the main people except Mark, basically. So we're just wondering, some big question marks for his Audi. But in terms of his indie character, yeah, he's a great character. I think Irving's probably my favorite. So definitely putting him, both his indie and his Audi, in the S tier. And finally, the fourth core member, we're back to back here, Mark Scout, played by Adam Scott. He is our main protagonist of the show. And personally, we see a lot of both his innie and his outie. So we're basically seeing it through his eyes. I think Adam Scott was perfectly cast in the show. He so fits the look and the vibe of this office worker, along with his more scruffled up, sort of taking it day by day outie version of himself. But his innie, he's just got the look of it. He's got the cadence of how he speaks and everything. And I've only seen Adam Scott in some more comedic stuff. You don't really see him in much serious stuff, but this show, again, perfectly casted. I think he does a great job. He's got the look for it. He definitely has the acting chops for it, and you're rooting for him. Honestly, you really want to see this character succeed. I really like the trajectory of the character and how much he evolves and how rebellious he gets and how he shows himself off to be a leader in a way to these people, to this MDR group, and I really like that. And I think that it's such a great character arc and everything that happens, and especially with him at the end of the first season, some of the different things that are going on. And again, don't want to spoil anything, but just some of the surprise twists that happen to him. You really feel for him. So, great character. I really like him. Putting Mark S up at the S tier. So, yeah, all the main core are S tier except Dylan. I think, personally, I forgot to mention a little bit more about Dylan here, but I think that Dylan is, when it comes to like scenes where he has to yell and really show emotion, is not as good as the other the other three core members. So that's one of the reasons why I have him at the A tier. I know it may be a small gripe, but as a little quick alteration, I'm actually going to be putting Mark's Audi in the A tier. I much prefer his innie to his Audi. I think his Audi is a little more boring, which understandable. This is, I think, the only character that I can rate them separately, just because we actually see a lot of his Audi and his innie. So yeah, I'm going to be putting him up at the A tier. Moving forward, we have Mr. Milchick, played by Trammell Tillman. So he plays the main right-hand man to Harmony Cobel, which we'll get to in a minute, but she's basically the boss, right? The boss of everybody, basically the top head, top manager, if you will. And he's definitely second in command. He would be maybe the supervisor or director or something. He maybe the CEO in a way. Somebody that's just in charge of day-to-day management, checking up on people. He's definitely up there right next to her. And he is a phenomenal actor. I think this guy, Trammell Tillman, does a great job. He's so likable, even though you're not even supposed to like him. He's supposed to be a more of a villainous type character next to Harmony Cobel. But man, he's like a powerhouse. He's doing everything. He's doing comedy. He's dancing in one scene. He's breaking it down. Next scene, he's serious and laying down the law. So he does a great job at just mixing these two bags of different things going on and really setting the law down while still gaining the trust of some of the people. So I really like this character a lot. I think he's excellent. Mr. Milchick, as much as they want me to hate you, putting you up at the S tier. Next we have Miss Huang, played by Sarah Brock. So Miss Huang was introduced in the second season, and she's like this little girl, basically. There's a lot of questions surrounding her. They don't really know why she's there. We don't know why she's there. The characters don't know why she's there. But she seems to be almost like the right-hand woman, sort of, to Mr. Milchick for some reason. This is totally unexplained, and I really want them to explain who exactly she is, because she's literally like telling them what to do, telling them what not to do, giving them orders. Like, she's kind of in charge as well when he's not around, Mr. Milchick. She's kind of taking up that duty, and it's pretty funny because she's like half, a quarter of their age or whatnot. So it's funny to see that she has like that position of power, but she's smaller. But it's kind of funny, actually, the idea of that. Not much screen time, but I think the actress who plays her does a really good job. But it's pretty funny. I'm really curious to see what we're going to learn more about this character. Who exactly is she? But, you know, because of the mystery and the way she's played, I think I'm going to be putting her up at the B- tier. Again, as the season goes on, maybe we'll see more of her and we'll see more of her story. But as of now, yeah, I think B- is good. Next, we have Miss Casey, played by Dichen Luckman. So, there's a lot to this character, way more than you think. That's all I'm going to say. At first, there's way more to her character than you're led to believe. But in terms of who she is, she basically is in charge of wellness in the first season. So basically these faux therapy type sessions that she does with some of the workers just to check their mental wellness in a way. And she has this sort of deadpan look. She almost looks like a robot, the way she stands around and stares at people. And she's very quiet and soft-spoken, but very much like a Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like that. Just very soft-spoken, but very alien-like. And yeah, she definitely sells that role. Again, barely seen throughout the show, even though in the grand scheme of things she's way more important than she's led on to be. But honestly, I think that she does a pretty solid job, but they don't really show too much of her, so it's hard to really give her such a high score. I want to say B, but I think I'm going to be putting her up at the C+ tier. Switch these two. So yeah, C+, bordering on a B-. I think it's hard to put her up any higher because she doesn't have much of a role, but in terms of screen time. But I think she's pretty solid. Next up, we have Ntalie, played by Sydney Cole Alexander. So she is basically the middleman between this department and the board, which is the upper people. You really never get to see them, aka this thing right here, this little radio thing. Yeah, that's the board. They never speak. They're basically this always watching Big Brother sort of group that you never see, but they're always know what's going on. And Ntalie is kind of like the middle person. She's the person that you kind of speak to, and she transfers the message to them, and vice versa. She's like, okay, yeah, the call's finished, or like the board is on the line, and she'll ask the questions on their behalf. So sort of like the messenger, if you will, but like live while it's happening. I think she does a pretty good job as her character. I think that Ntalie is definitely that sort of like prim and proper, but receptionist sort of type, if you will. Very, very straight-laced with her responses and everything. And yeah, I think that she does a pretty solid job as her character. Not much of a big role, but she's got a little charm to her, and I think that she's pretty good. So I think she'll go B-. I honestly, now thinking back, I think I'm going to be putting Miss Stacy up at the B tier. I think that's where Miss Casey. I think she belongs in the B tier now that I think about it. So I'm retracting that one. One retraction. Forgive me. Next we have Petey, played by Yul Vasquez. So Petey was somebody that used to work MDR department and was Mark's best friend, or a good friend of his, and he sort of disappears, and Helly's actually the person that comes in and replaces him. So it's pretty interesting. You do see him a little bit. There's a little bit of a side story going on with him in the outie world, actually. Not so much in the innie world, but really his character's not really fleshed out that much. You are led to believe that they were best friends, but honestly, it really isn't portrayed very much. You don't really get to see too much of that relationship flourish or anything in the history of it. Obviously, they don't want to, reveal too much, but you don't really get to see too much of it. So, yeah, it's hard to sort of rank him too high. I think that Petey goes in the C tier. Not even enough screen time to really develop a personality. His role basically in the show is to sort of progress the story without actually progressing his own character very much. So, yeah, I think putting him at the C, just straight C, is where it belongs. Next we have the lady helping Mark's outie. So I could not for the life of me find this actress's name or the character's name for some reason. If you guys know, please let me know below. But she basically helps Mark in the outside world, kind of answering his questions. She is definitely going to be playing a major role. She plays a major part in what happens in the first season, basically. Even though she barely has any screen time whatsoever. And she's there for maybe like 5-10 minutes of screen time in total throughout the first season. So I wonder if they're going to ever go back to her, but she seems pretty important. Sort of this mysterious figure that kind of helps him, and she knows a lot of things that Mark doesn't. So yeah, I'm curious to see what they're going to do with her. She, right now, I mean, she's just very one note, doesn't have much of a personality, but she's super important to the story. I'm going to be putting her up as a character in the C tier. Yes, super important, super integral, but just a little boring. Next we have Ricken Hale, played by Michael Chernus. So he is the husband of Devon, Mark's sister, and he is a very unique personality. I thought that he was very quirky. He's an author, and his book sort of plays an important part of actually the events that take place in the first season, weirdly enough. But I think that he's really a funny character. He seems like a nice guy, really into his book, really into his art, and just a character. He can be really out there, and I like him. I think he brought a good energy to the show. I think he really matched well with Devon. I think that they have a good chemistry going on, and when he's on the screen, he's sort of the comedic sort of side person, but he works very well, you know, managing against Mark and Devon and all the other characters. And yeah, I kind of liked how he was in the final episode of the first season. I think his role sort of in that episode, the final episode, is pretty good. So yeah, I kind of like this character. Doesn't have a bunch of screen time, but has enough for me to say, yeah, he's pretty likable. So putting him up at the B+ tier, I think that's fair. And then finally, last but not least, we have Harmony Cobel, played by Patricia Arquette. So Patricia Arquette is a good character, and I absolutely despise this character. She is evil to the core. She's not a good person at all, and conniving, manipulative. I mean, everything you want to say in the book, just an evil character. You hate her. I absolutely hate her character, but Patricia Arquette does an excellent job at playing her, and you know, a testament to any character that you hate is a testament to the actor for you know, not only making you hate them, but that's basically the role. So she is evil. She is the top person. She's sort of like the manager, basically, main manager. She calls the shots, at least in the Lumen building in the industry. She calls the shots. She's not the very top. There's still the board and the main people over her, but in terms of the main core people, she's in charge of them, basically, and she calls the shots in that sense. So yeah, basically like a manager, if you will, for this whole team. And yeah, she just is despicable. She has such a punchable face, honestly. If a punchable face was a personality, she would be it. You just hate her. You want her to get hers in the worst way possible. But, you know, maybe I'm going overboard, but I really don't like her character at all. But because she's evil, you know? So, yeah, but because of that, I think that she goes reluctantly because it's so well portrayed. I want to put her in the C tier just because I hate her, but I'm going to be putting her at B-. She is a complex character in the sense of how she's played and her trajectory. And yeah, just great performance from Patricia Arquette. So there you have it, a quick rundown and ranking of all the Severance characters. Again, let me know if you want to see my ranking of some of these people down here. But if you like this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Then let me know below what you agree or disagree with this ranking. And if you haven't seen Severance, go check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.